We're ready to go.
Oh, I had no idea. We're ready to go.
How about that?
All right, excellent. Well, now that we covered the whole James Bond thing.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, I'm sure there's more. Yeah, there's a lot more. But we are happy to welcome our next guest. He was in our studio a while back. It was a really cool interview that we had with him. Now we welcome him in anticipation of coming back to Philadelphia in February and this new song, Hunter's Moon, that we've been playing. Ladies and gentlemen, Tobias Forge of Ghost. On the show. Good morning, Tobias. Hey. Oh, I'm glad we made this work.
Hey.
How are you doing, sir?
I am very, very well, thank you. How do you do?
We're all doing great, man. Listen, I don't know if you remember the when you were here, but at that time you weren't comfortable with photographs, so we had an artist who came in and sketched you while we were here. Do you recall that?
Oh yeah, I remember it very clearly.
Nice. Well,
thank you for having me again once more. In clandestine mode.
Yeah, no problem.
No, that's fine. It's fine. The fact that we're even talking is a miracle at this point.
So we've.
I have a funny.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a funny story. I just heard you mentioning Quantum of Solace.
Yes.
And once upon a time, years back, I don't remember exactly when that was called, when that came out, but maybe a year or so before that film premiered. I was a hopeful songwriter. Not necessarily very successful, and I actually wrote a Bond song called Quantum of Solace that I intended to sort of throw into the whatever, highway of in the mix of, trying to get people. I still have it.
And would it fall in line for Ghost, or is it a bit out of that realm?
Oh, it's a total Ghost song.
Oh, really?
Nowadays, it just dawned on me when I heard you mentioning that, was like, oh yeah, I had that song as well.
Well, maybe I hope we serve as an inspiration for a song to come up on an album.
Listen, Chris Cornell did, Casino Royale, and rock artists have always appeared on Bond soundtracks. So the hope springs eternal on this one.
Yeah, I'm still hopeful. As I was back then.
with Hunter's Moon, this is in Halloween Kills, which is, in the Halloween legacy. It's not, you'll have to clear this up, not on the soundtrack. It's going to be in the end credits, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah, I know it's sort of, that's at least what's sold to me. I haven't seen the film yet, but I remember Ryan Turek, one of the producers, who sort of drew me into the whole mix. He was when we got into the specifics of like what they wanted, and yes, they wanted like a Ghost song. I was like, okay, so what it's going to be used for? Sometimes you write music and they end up like using a segment or something in a scene,
right?
Which means sometimes you have to sort of break the song down into like an acoustic version or. And he was like, no. We want it to be in the end, sort of end bit.
Right.
And that also sort of served as an inspiration for how to sort of, orchestrate the song. But yes, that is in the end credits.
I was going to ask you about the lyrics for the song because I was reading them this morning, and before I'd ask this question, I wanted to remind you that when you were here last, I asked you about the song Rats, and I said, well, who are the rats? Are the rats, society? Is it and you were like, no, it's just the vermin, rats. It's the actual creature, which cracked us up because we thought you were being poetic and cryptic. And you're like, no, it's about rats. And reading the lyrics of Hunter's Moon, I got the impression, because I wasn't connecting it to Halloween, but it sounded to me like a grave robber going back to a cemetery who was going to dig up an old friend. But I guess I'm way off base on that one.
No, it's about rats, Preston.
Right. Yeah, so this is about worms.
Nice.
No, it's a little bit more. No, it's not necrophiliac in that way. No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean, obviously, you can interpret it any way you want. It's obviously written to be interpretational,
right?
Or up for interpretation. because it has that sort of nostalgic, sort of back, sort of a retrospective outlook on something that has been, but some sort of maybe platonic love that sort of has reached beyond time. And
well, in the Halloween,
back to that,
yeah, in the Halloween mythos, I mean, with Laurie Strode, who's Michael Myers' sister, there is a connection, and they keep making all of these connections, and the possibility of sort of an incestuous sort of thing, and all of this stuff plays in over all these movies. I wanted to ask you, Tobias, was one of the first, did you actually see Halloween 2 when you were a kid, and that's what got you into this stuff?
Ironically, the Halloween, the second film was the first that I saw.
Okay.
So I missed out on the first. I saw that later. But I saw the second one, and the story is very simple. I was home. I was sick. Not too sick, but the sort of sick you are when you're 7 and you feel like you just don't want to go to school.
Okay.
Maybe I had a slight cold, and mom, who's always been very, very liberal and very kind, she did me the favor of going down to the tobacco shop that was just across the street and rented a film that I'd seen down there that I wanted to see, and that was Halloween 2. So I saw that, and obviously it sort of struck me very quickly, because obviously it was a sequel, unbeknownst to me, and it sort of just started it's like knee deep in terror immediately, because obviously it's just a continuation of the first one. But it really, I found it really frightening, and very inspirational. It's always been.
Do you think it's a pivotal? I mean, because I love horror movies. I love your kind of fascination and the darker stuff with your music and any stuff that resonates that way, I'm on board. But do you think that was sort of a pivotal moment where you're frightened but also intrigued by it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Musically as well. I think a lot of the things that I saw, that even though there were several films that added to the inspiration, I definitely say just because that was an early encounter with, something that would live with me for the rest of my life. And now obviously, it's part of my working life as well. It was an inspiration, image-wise, with the masked, unknown sort of killer.
Yeah.
Or culprit or star, if you want. But also musically, I've that was my first. Maybe I saw the Escape from New York before that. I don't remember, but it was my first sort of encounter with Carpenter's music, and which has always been a big, musically has been a hero of mine. So yeah, it was a very pivotal moment, I'd say.
Yeah. One of the things that I love you do with Ghost music, and you do this in Hunter's Moon, and I'm curious about it, is you use odd time signatures. And for me personally, I like that type of thing. I like progressive rock and so on. So odd time signatures are not foreign to me, but they can give you a kind of a sense of uneasiness because it doesn't follow a regular path. Things are off just a little bit. Will you throw those in on purpose to give that kind of sensation, that odd sensation?
Not for the sake of just being odd.
Okay.
I think my what was once a career or lack of career handicap, I think, was the fact that I've always been quite proggy in my writing, which fit quite well back when I was a teenager and in my early 20s when I was writing death metal. Because the odd signatures is like that's the way you do it. And once I started writing more melodic music, if you will, more accessible rock music, it has been a constant sort of subject where sometimes I write so odd that it becomes, you have to sort of revisit things and just like, oh, we have to sort of change here because it's like hard to understand for anyone who's more four on the floor sort of thinking. Most people are. Right. Most people are actually quite, sensitive towards anything that sort of skews away from the natural dramaturgy of a sort of a 3 minute, 10-second song.
Right.
And there's a reason for that. Like this, for the same reason that most films have sort of the same dramaturgical structure and usually the same length, because that's usually how people sort of digest films. And I'm not, I've listened to so much very simple music, everything from obviously top 40 doo-wop, 60s, 50s rock, to Ramones and punk music that is super straight. Mm-hmm. But I'm also brought up with a big influx of prog music and extreme metal. So I don't do it too. I think that what you end up hearing sometimes on Ghost Records is basically my songs having gone through a mangle of stuff that has been taken out.
Okay.
That has been too odd and too strange and too hard to digest.
Okay.
Basically, so I'm not deliberately trying to make it difficult. What you hear is the result of me trying to purposely not make it difficult.
Well,
but that still all lives within you, that type of oddness. Okay, I get it.
How difficult is that editing process? Because you're doing very inventive stuff, and as you're going through, I assume if we're going to draw a parallel between films, when something's near and dear to you, and you're using it for expression, and you have something that is just not quite right in its bloated way, and you're paring it down. Is that something you can do with surgical precision, or do you have to do a lot of hand wringing?
Both.
Both.
It depends a little bit who you're working with. My process of doing a lot of that is obviously when you make a record, you usually work with a producer. And in rock music, it's very common that you work with one producer for the record. And some producers are just yay-sayers, and they just sort of let everything through and they just make it sound cool.
Right.
Whereas some other producers, who are sort of well-known to universe. Mutt Lange is that sort of person, and Bob Ezrin, how he sort of transformed Kiss from the one band that made Alive and then, goes Destroyer.
Right.
I do it in a sort of a mixture of that, because during the album cycles, I mean, when the record is out and I go out on tour for 18 months, obviously it's not like a consecutive tour of 18 months of nonstop playing. You have weeks in between tours off, and sometimes you're off, have a few days off in some city somewhere. And I usually try to write when I'm on tour. And the way that I do it is that I like to have songs half written, and then I go into the studio, or a studio, a writing studio. A writing studio basically looks like a living room, but with studio gear. Mm-hmm. So it's cozy and inspirational. But you go into a room like that and you write. I write with other people that I like, that I admire, and that I like writing with and I like hanging with. And that way, each song sort of gets like the best out of me and the best out of someone else that comes in and has no aspirations of being in the band, or no aspirations to play anything, or, it's just sheer sort of writing joy.
Okay. That's wild that you will purposely write half a song and just hang on for collaboration. That's an interesting kind of method.
I've done the other way around as well. I mean, the other way where there was no one but myself.
Okay.
That's cool too. But it's what ends up happening when you do that, especially I hate to say it like this, but like when it matters, meaning that it was easier to write songs because back in the day when you had nowhere to go with them. They were not planned for anything special, and they weren't meant to fit in anywhere. Whereas now it's a little bit more important that, you know, at a certain point you have to deliver everything neatly packaged into an album, and preferably 3 of them needs to be really, 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 really good. I like getting that sort of what do you call it? Like I like being questioned when it comes to music. Not by anyone.
You
but
have
for
your
someone
vision.
That but for anyone that, as this is very common, I think that in the rock world, it might be a little bit more of a hush hush, that you don't want to do that. Everybody believes that every rock record is sort of just happened by itself. It was written in real time and just happens to be like that. Whereas in theater, in literature, in film, it's way more common that you sort of you try out your stuff towards other people. You know, when you write a script, you let people read it. You let people edit it, because it's important that people understand it.
Yeah, it's more collaborative.
It's more openly collaborative. No one sort of doubts that what do you say, like that it's made out of joy. But still, at the end of the day, when you write a script or you write a book, it's meant to be digested by other people.
Well,
so the first hindrance is to sort of sell it to the person in front of you. Like, do you like this song? Do you like this chorus that I wrote?
Let me jump in and ask you a question, since we're making a lot of movie correlations here. Rob Zombie has gone on to direct and become quite a proficient, good director. In fact, he's directed some Halloween movies. With what you were talking about and the way you see things, has film and an eventual leap into taking a crack at directing and writing scripts, is that something that is in your bucket list?
Yeah, well, I mean, with the risk of sounding like, remember Coming to America?
Yeah.
When they're in that bar and they meet several different sort of New York stereotypes.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And there's this one girl who's like, I'd like to have my own studio, and I'd like to be a singing artist, and I'd like to write films, and then I would like to be an actor, and then I would like to have a design clothing line.
Yeah.
But short answer is yes. I have always been insanely interested in cinema.
Yeah.
And it's just the fact that I haven't done the due diligence of that. I haven't gone to any school. I haven't done that. I have a lot of ideas, and I have a lot of I've started writing different scripts and different things. And obviously when we do things, I'm usually quite involved. But at the end of the day, like, especially film is so insanely dependent on obviously funding and collaborations, and the amounts of if you think making a rock record is hard with sort of outside and production lines and all kinds of stuff that needs to sort of fit, making films is like times 10. I have a few really good friends of mine are directors, and they work both in cinema and series and, you know, Netflix and all that sort of stuff. And we every time we speak about it, it's just like, oh yeah, it's such a hard work. Yeah. And once you do that and you have like a vision, and, you know, some of my friends are very clear with me. It's like, with the sort of vision that you have and the sort of detailed minutia sort of control freakishness, it will be a nightmare, because it never turns out the way you want it. And you can write the cinema, you know, in the best set ever. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you cast the wrong lead, and all of a sudden the film is like a complete flop.
Tobias, I have to jump in, and I think we've hit our limit on the F word. We are an American radio, and we're not allowed to do that. And I keep hitting the dump button, and I hope I got all of them. So
that's 4.
I know you're used to European and Scandinavian radio. You can say it all you want, but unfortunately we have some rules. But I did want to ask you about film and your characters, Papa Emeritus and Cardinal Copia. Would they be a good subject for film, or is that better suited on a stage and performing that way?
Good question. And I'm going to try to answer that without going too far into the future. But there are elements in the storytelling around what we're doing that might be one of the ideas that I'm working on.
Well, listen, I would love to see that. That would be the imagery that you have conjured. The presentation and everything is just sitting there waiting to be plucked. So I'm assuming by your skirting around these answers that they might figure into whatever project you might do cinematically. But obviously you have this tour coming up, so nothing's going to happen for a while.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
There are other ways. There are other ways to tell a story before you eventually might turn it into a moving picture.
Okay.
So we're working on that, and but the story has been in the works for quite some time. I mean, anyone who have seen our episodes and all that might have noticed that there is sort of a vague story there, but most of it is actually coming from the bigger, longer story. What makes our project here kind of odd is that at the end of the day, we are a rock band.
Yeah.
And, what started 10 years ago with my, at the time, new American label, they had just recently signed me and they said like, "Oh, what's the story? Like, what do we say to people?" And I was like, "What story? There is no story. There's nothing to say. Can we not just let the band be and be just what people see and interpretational?"
Yeah.
I was like, it doesn't work like that. And I was like, okay, I'll make up a story then. So, and then obviously at the end of the day, but just because it's a rock band that we are, that's our main thing. Or
right.
Actually, we go around selling merchandise. We're a Tupperware band, but that makes it kind of weird because you have this storyline going parallel that is there for entertainment values, basically for entertainment's sake, because a lot of our fans and myself included is deeply interested in storytelling and,
right.
and fiction and horror and sci-fi and all that stuff. Whereas, obviously we can't just sit, take time out for a tour and make a film.
Right.
So because that's like a completely different being. That's a
right.
completely different entity. So we have to work in parallels and see what will come out of it. A lot of those things that, is sidetracking like that. It requires a tremendous amount of collaboration and also flow and love. Basically, you need to find someone that can take the vision and sort of take it further.
Okay.
Well, that takes a little bit of time.
Well, with everything going on, and obviously you're going to be in the area in February and coming here. I don't know if you've in past visits to Philadelphia if you've ever been to the Mutter Museum, but I don't know. If you ever. Yeah. Okay. Why did I should have figured you would have been there. But that was made for Tobias Ford. Did you have a good time?
Yes, it was great. Yeah, I had a day off at some point. I don't remember. This is probably 6-7 years ago. But I did the whole, Philly thing with the Philly cheesesteaks down there. Those neighboring, what do you call those? The two stands there.
Pats and Geno's. Yes.
Yeah. So that, and we went to the Mutter Museum. And I never did the run up to the
Rocky
stairs
steps.
there. The Rocky steps. I didn't do that, but we went past it.
If you
so
do it,
still on my bucket list.
When you come here, if you do it as Papa Emeritus.
That'd be hilarious. I would love to see Papa jumping up and down. with his fists in the air.
It'd make for some hell of a video.
Well, listen, I know that the excitement level is high for the announcement of the show.
Yeah.
Like Steve was saying, it's February 12th at BB&T Pavilion. Tickets are available at Ticketmaster.com. You have a strong fan base here in Philadelphia, so you can definitely count on plenty of support. And Volbeat is on the bill as well, and Twin Temple. So it's going to be cool, man. But listen, we really appreciate your time, Tobias. It was great to catch up with you once again, and we're looking forward to hearing the song Hunter's Moon in Halloween Kills, which is coming out on the 15th.
I believe it is, yes.
So, but thanks so much for joining us, man. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me again. I hope to see you all soon.
Excellent.
Yes.
Take care, and we wish you the best. Tobias Forge, guys, from Ghost. And, yeah.